Welcome, tankers, to the Ground Nation Guide for War Thunder. In this episode, we'll be going over the Israeli tank tree. The full playlist is linked below.
Israel has a unique position both in-game and in real life. Ever since their independence in 1948, they've been in a constant state of conflict or threat of war, leading to heavy investments in their military technology. The first couple tanks in their arsenal were makeshift designs like the Super Sherman, but over time their stockpile grew, with imports from France, the UK, and the US. From the 60s onward, Israel continued to rely on foreign designs, but with modernizations and upgrades of purchased or captured equipment leading to the Magak, Shot, and Tehran series. Due to their geopolitical situation and limited budget at first, upgrading was cheaper, faster, and more practical than purchasing brand new equipment. However, in the late 20th century, the first truly indigenous line of Israeli tanks began with the Merkava, which still makes up the backbone of their tank force today. Unlike all the other nations, the Israeli tech tree starts from Tier 4, since they didn't exist before World War II. To unlock it, you have to reach rank 4 with either the US, the UK, USSR, or France. The tree contains 4 lines, those being 2 medium tank lines, an SPA line, and a tank destroyer line. Because the Israeli army relied heavily on foreign equipment, the vast majority of their tank tree consists of vehicles from other countries, whether it's copy and pasted or modified variants. Not only that, but the tree also repeats itself quite frequently, with a large number of variants of the same couple of tanks. Regardless, the tree does contain some unique and fun vehicles to try out, and their focus on firepower can lead to some interesting playstyles. Starting it off, we have Tier 4, some of the first tanks in the Israeli army. In the first medium tank line, we have the M51 and the Magak 1 and 2. The Super Sherman is a modified M4A1 with the same 105mm cannon as the AMX-30. This makes it the definition of a glass cannon. Pretty much anything on the battlefield will be able to take you out, but its heat shells have over 400mm of penetration, which is more than enough to fight against the heaviest tanks of the BR. The Magak 1 and 2, on the other hand, are imports of the M48 Patton, being the A1 and A2 variants respectively. They play exactly like their American and German counterparts, being good snipers and support tanks. Their armor is okay at best, they're not the fastest tanks around, but their 90mm cannon carries heat FS. The two variants are pretty much the same. The A2 is just a bit heavier, but has a slightly more powerful engine. Nothing substantial though. Once you unlock their optical rangefinders, they become even better in that playstyle, but make sure to stay back and not extend yourself too far. In the second medium tank line, we have the AMX-13, AML-90, and the Shot. The first two are identical to their French equivalents, with both being nimble reconnaissance vehicles, and the AML being extremely fast with paper-thin armor. Both carry great firepower. The former has a 5-second auto-loaded cannon, while the latter can fire heat FS. The Shot, meanwhile, is the Israeli designation for the Centurion Mark V. In stark contrast to the two speedsters, the Shot is a very slow machine, but it makes up for the lack of mobility with a powerful cannon, that being its stabilized 20-pounder. With 380mm of penetration on its APDS shell, it can cut through anything at its BR. But like we've emphasized so many times now, it has pretty much no post-penetration effects, so knowing the enemy's weak spots is crucial. Even though its optics are pretty trash, your best bet is sniping from a long distance. The SPA line contains the TCM-20 and the ZSU-57-2. The TCM is an anti-air based off the M3 half-track chassis. It's pretty much the M16, but with two 20mm Hispanos instead of 4 50 cals. For what it's worth, it's a decent anti-air, but has absolutely no lineup since all the other tanks are at 6.0 and onwards. For something more powerful though, there's the ZSU-57. This captured variant of the Sparka is exactly the same as the Soviet one. Amazing firepower, great anti-tank capabilities, but difficult to use against aircraft. It's a solid supporting vehicle or light tank destroyer, but its armor is pretty much non-existent, so make sure to stay on the move. Lastly, for the tank destroyers, we have the M109, the Rochev, and the Zaklim Taker. The first two vehicles are the classic paladins we've seen so many times now, being reasonably mobile, lightly armored, but very heavily armed. A well-placed shot from their 155mm cannons can nuke anything off the map, but you have to aim properly, otherwise it won't do much. The two SPHs are pretty much the same. The Rochev just has slightly more muzzle velocity thanks to its improved cannon. As for the Zaklim Taker, it's definitely one of the tank destroyers of all time. It's an M3 half-track carrying 4 SS-11 ATGMs. And while that may sound good on paper, the missiles are keyboard guided and very slow. It's essentially the Israeli equivalent to the Type 60 ATM, but smaller and more nimble. It's a very situational vehicle, and to make the most of it, find some hard cover and snipe enemies at medium range with your binoculars. Avoid exposing yourself at all costs, since machine guns can take you out, and the missiles will ammo rack you if they get hit. At rank 5, we start to see further developments of the early Cold War designs. The first medium tank line contains the Magach 3, 6, 6A, and 5. The third variant of the battering ram is an M48 with the M68 cannon, the same as on the M60. It's basically an American variant of the Royal Ordnance L7, and you'll be seeing a lot of it in this tree. Compared to the Magach 1 and 2, it gets a more powerful heat FS shell and access to smoke grenades, at the cost of a worse power to rate ratio, but besides that, it's pretty much the same. The 6 and 6A variants, on the other hand, are just Israeli designations for the M60A1 with just a few upgrades. Just like their American counterparts, these tanks are jacks of all trades that specialize in sniping. However, unlike the M60A1, the Magach 6A lacks a two-plane stabilizer, which makes it a lot less versatile. That being said, the M68 cannon is still quite strong, and with their optical rangefinders, you can be a solid long-range sniper. As for the differences, the 6A has nearly double the turret armor that the 6 has, but that comes at the cost of less mobility and a slower turret rotation rate. It also has a massive cupola, which is a massive detriment if the enemy has APHE. Lastly, we have the Magach 5, which is an upgraded M48A5. Compared to the Magach 3, it gets ERA blocks around the tank and access to an APF SDS shell, which is a welcome addition. At its core though, it is still an M48, so like all 4 of these tanks, your main strategy should be to stay back and either snipe or support your allies. In the second medium tank line, we have the Tehran 4 and 4S, as well as the Shot Kal Aleph. The Tehran, or the Tyrant in English, is a captured T-54 tank with some modifications. The 4 is practically identical to the Soviet tank, just with a worse machine gun. The 4S, meanwhile, is a T-54, but with the M68 cannon, which has better muzzle velocity when compared to the D-10T. Both of these are decent all-arounders with solid armor, acceptable mobility, and good firepower, but their turret rotation rates are still awful like the original variants. On the other hand, we also have the Shot Kal Aleph, which is a modernized version of the original Shot. Compared to the whip, the Kal Aleph has an improved engine and fire control system, with, you guessed it, the M68 cannon. The improved mobility allows you to roam around to get better vantage points, and on top of that, its gun is stabilized, but sadly lacks a laser rangefinder. Try to employ a mix of sniping and supporting to keep up with the front lines, but stay behind some of your allies. For the SPA line, we have the Covet, or Batter in English. It's identical to the American M163 with a 20mm autocannon and the hull of the M113. Combined with the tracking radar, the Vulcan works wonders against aircraft, having one of the highest fire rates in the game. Although it lacks a search radar, it's still a very solid anti-air platform that can make quick work of any close flying aircraft. Lastly, in the tank destroyer line, we have the Zelda. It's similar to the Italian VCC 8060, carrying a 60mm cannon with a fast reload rate, but no armor whatsoever. The cannon can carry APF SDS shells, but the shell has very little post-penetration effects, as well as lacking gun depression. That being said, its mobility is acceptable, so it can make for a half-decent reconnaissance vehicle. Rank 6 contains upgrades upon upgrades with modernizations and the first couple indigenous designs. The first medium tank line turns into the MBT line, or rather an M60 line, with the Magach 6R, 6B, Hydra, 6M, 6C, Galbatosh, and the Magach 7C. These are all different variants of the M60 with various new features and improvements. The 6R and 6B are the 6 and 6A respectively, but with 2-plane stabilizers, ERA blocks in the front and around the turret, as well as smoke grenades. They also carry the new rear cannon with great APF SDS rounds. But don't be fooled, it's just a different designation for the M68. These new additions make the tank a bit slower, but it's honestly worth it for the extra protection and the APF SDS round. The Hydra, on the other hand, is one of the most unique tanks in the tree, being a 6R but with 2 rocket pods strapped to its turret. As you might expect, these missiles add an unexpected element to the otherwise normal tanks. If your cannon doesn't kill the target, you can just keep firing rockets until you finish them off. This comes at the cost of lacking ERA and smoke grenades though, but it is the lightest of the Magachs, so there's that. As for the 6M and 6C, they're the same as the R and B variants respectively, but with improved ERA and new fire control systems. This includes a laser rangefinder and thermals. The C also has access to a laser warning system, ESS, and an improved APFSDS round with better penetration and much better gunner optics. The 6B Galbatash is expectedly an upgrade to the B, and it's similar to the 6C, but with the addition of composite armor and substantially more powerful engine. Last but not least, we have the 7C, which is similar to the Galbatash, but its armor being applique instead of composite or explosive reactive. This leads to a slightly bulkier design and less protection. To wrap this all up, the various models of the Magach 6 and 7 are modernizations of the M60 with all sorts of upgrades ranging from ERA to new fire control systems and better ammunition. But they all play somewhat the same. Long-range sniping and supporting are their bread and butter, but you can still dabble in a bit of CQB with the later models. The second MBT line contains the Shot Cal Gemel, Tehran 6, and Merkava Mark 1B and 2B. The Cal Gemel is the third and final variant of the Shot, with similar upgrades we saw on the Magachs like ERA, a laser rangefinder, smoke grenades, and the Sharir cannon carrying APFSDS rounds. The hull also gets a slight increase in armor, but at the end of the day, it's still a Centurion, so stick to sniping and supporting. The Tehran 6, meanwhile, is a captured and upgraded T-62. Well, I say upgraded, but it just has an extra 50 cal, but lacks ESS, so it's nearly identical. Like its Soviet counterpart, it's best used for sniping, since it has a great cannon, low profile, and not the best armor. Lastly, we have the Merkava, the first indigenous tank of the Israeli tech tree. These MBTs have a very unique design. Unlike many tanks, the Merkava prioritizes crew protection, which leads to the bulky design with the engine block in front of the tank. Even though its armor is pretty thin, it can absorb a lot of enemy shells, with projectiles either being stopped by the engine or simply passing through the tank without the crew members being hit. As a result, if the enemy takes a blind shot at your tank, there's a high chance it won't take you out immediately, giving you a chance to fight back. The 2B is pretty much the same as the 1, just with better reverse speed and composite screens on the side, but without the 50 cal. They both carry the 105mm Sharir cannon with the laser rangefinders, laser warning systems, and thermals, but their mobility is worse than the NATO MBTs. They also have very small ready racks only holding 6 rounds. Overall, they're solid tanks capable of a number of playstyles like sniping, brawling, and supporting, but keep in mind while their survivability is decent, their armor is lackluster. In the SPA line, we have the ZSU-23-4V and the Machbet. The Shilka is the SPA we all know and love, with 4 23mm autocannons and a great fire rate. Along with this, it also carries a search and tracking radar, which gives it a leg up over the M163. Speaking of, the second anti-air is the Machbet, or the Racket in English. It's the same as the Kovet, but with modernized fire control system and 4 Stingers missiles. The fire control system contains a laser rangefinder and thermals, but it still lacks a search radar, which is a big handicap at this BR. The Stingers are also not the best missiles with unreliable locks and limited pull, but they are still nice to have. Lastly, the tank destroyer line contains a Giraffe, which is an M113 missile carrier. Like other variants from various countries, the M113 is nothing amazing, with decent mobility and no armor whatsoever. The tow missiles it carries are good enough for their BR, especially when upgraded to the ITO, but ERA will stop them in their tracks. It's not that great of a vehicle, but if you're a fan of missile sniping, then by all means. Finally, we reach top tier with ranks 7 and 8, containing the most advanced vehicles in the Israeli ground tree. The first MBT line contains the Sabar Mark 1, the 14th and final Magach in this line. The modernization of the M60 is brought all the way up to tier 7, thanks to its 120mm cannon, which gets a great APFSDS shell. The fire control system gets an upgrade as well, with much faster turret rotation speed and reload. At its core though, it is still an M60, so your main strategy should be to stay back and snipe. The improved optics and powerful gun are well suited for this playstyle. In the second MBT line, we have a couple Merkava variants, with the Mark 3B and C, the Mark 4B, LIC, and M. The Mark 3B is a direct upgrade from the first 2 models, with a new 1200 horsepower engine and the 120mm cannon we saw from the Sabar. While NATO tanks are still faster, its gun is more than enough to deal with opponents of this BR, so it becomes even better in the sniping role. Unfortunately, with a better gun comes a much higher BR, and the engine gimmick won't save you from the various high caliber guns at this rank. While the armor isn't as bad as the Ariettes, they still are very much glass cannons, so you should avoid direct confrontations. The Mark III-B and C are pretty much identical, the latter just with improved commander optics and composite screens around the hull. The 4th generation of the Chariot introduces a new turret design, composite armor, a 1500 horsepower engine with a reverse gearbox, and a new fire control system which includes better optics, improved reloading systems, and a better APFSDS round. These upgrades make the tank more nimble and deadly, but again, its armor is nowhere near enough. Thanks to the new 10-round revolving magazine though, the reload rate can drop down to 5 seconds on an ace crew, but the tank still relies on crew as it doesn't have an autoloader. The 4B and low intensity conflict are practically identical in game, with the LIC only having mine protection modification, which is honestly just deadweight. The 4M does have a trick up its sleeve though, that being the Trophy Hard Kill APS. Like we saw in the British Black Knight, Trophy is the only active protection system that can stop kinetic shells like APFSDS, at least so far. This gives the 4M an extra layer of protection, potentially saving it from a handful of deadly encounters, but relying on it too much isn't a good idea. Armor is still pretty trash, so with all 5 of these variants, your best bet is keeping your distance, engaging from afar, and relocating often. The SPA line contains the improved Chaparral and the Spider. The Chaparral is the exact same as the American model, and as such, it carries its downsides to this tree as well. No search radar, no armor, and lackluster infrared missiles. The only thing it has going for it is its upgraded missile, which doesn't have a trail. But honestly, the Macbeth or even the Shilka is a better choice. Unfortunately, the Spider AIO, or the Surface Python and Derby all-in-one, is not much better. Not only is it one of the largest vehicles in the game, its missiles and radar are not very reliable. It gets a choice between Pythons and Derby, with the former being infrared with more pole, and the latter being radar guided with more range. There is a chance it'll be improved later on, but as it stands, it's not amazing compared to the other top tier SPAAs. Last but not least, we have the Tank Destroyer line, which turns into an IFV line with the Namer 30 and the Srikon. The Namer, or Leopard series of infantry fighting vehicles, are unlike any other, being based on the hull of the Merkava Mark I and IV respectively. They both carry unmanned 30mm autocannons, Spike 2 ATGMs, and plenty of other gadgets like laser warning systems, tracking radars against aircraft, and Trophy Hard Kill APS on the latter variant. Because they're mounted on the Merkava hull though, the vehicles are pretty bulky and not the fastest, and they don't have much armor either. It's a good idea to stay out of sight and either snipe or ambush enemies. At long last, we reach the final conclusion of the series, starting with the pros and cons. Israeli tanks generally have one thing in common, that being their great firepower. Even at tier 4, all of their tanks are equipped with powerful cannons and a good selection of shells. And while the M68 gets reused quite often, it's still a reliable gun that gets the job done. The tech tree also offers you a decent selection of tanks from the various countries like France, the USA, UK, USSR, and more. Like in the Chinese tree, if you don't want to grind through them all, you can get a taste of them by playing them here. However, that leads us to the cons, starting with the most obvious one. Like their planes, the Israeli tank tree is almost entirely copy and paste. While that's not necessarily a bad thing, it will get repetitive if you've played the aforementioned countries. Not only that, but the tech tree also has a lot of reused vehicles. The first line is especially bad, as it consists of 14 different Magaks, with very minimal differences between their sub-variants, which will get very monotonous to grind through vehicle after vehicle. Next up are the rankings, starting with playstyles. Israeli tanks excel in sniping and supporting roles thanks to their firepower and fire control systems. Brawling isn't too bad of an option either, but not all their tanks are suited for it. Flanking is a bit of a lost cause though, since mobility isn't a big focus of their tech tree. As for ranks, the tree is quite solid overall, with tier 4 and tier 6 being the best overall. Israeli close air support is okay at the very start, but becomes top notch at tiers 6 through 8 with jets like the A4, Phantom, F-16, and so on. Their anti-air on the other hand is very lacking, except for a handful of vehicles. And finally, we have the age-old question. Should you play the Israeli tank tree? If you're a beginner, it's not that great of a choice. The tree is locked until you reach tier 4 in some other countries, but even then, their tanks are not that beginner-friendly to use. Some of them require good map knowledge and experience with playstyles. If you're looking for a new nation to grind, it's not the best choice either. As I've said, the majority of the tree is copy and paste, and there are a lot of repeating vehicles throughout the ranks. Players looking for a fresh experience will be left disappointed, but the fact that the tree starts from tier 4 makes the grind a lot shorter. And if you're just looking to have some fun, it's a decent choice. If you're a fan of sniping, the various upgrades and modernizations of existing sharpshooters can be very enjoyable, and you get to make lineups with tanks from various countries. If you're looking for recommendations, SK suggests the AML 90 and the Merkava Mark 1B. That wraps things up for the Israeli tech tree. Good luck out there, and have fun playing all 14 of the Magaks. Shalom.